Hello and welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation with me, your host Owen, the channel that brings you your team every single day, the team that brings you Glasgow Rangers every single day. If you need your daily Rangers fix, then hit that sub, ring that notification bell, set the notification to all so you don't miss out on any of the great daily content, the podcasts, the live streams during the season, and so much more. Also, you can join the channel for as little as 99p. The join button is down below. And also scrolling on the bottom of the screen at all the places you can find the channel on social media. Well, we're going to talk a lot of different things this morning, this afternoon, this evening, depending on obviously when you are picking up this video. We're going to talk about the fact that the Dessers deal is seemingly not dead, unfortunately. We're going to talk about Danilo. We're going to talk a little bit about exits for 5 Rangers players in particular. We're going to talk about James Bisgrove being voted against to get onto the SPFL board. We're going to talk a few different stories this morning. There's a lot to get through, so let's get on with it. Now, it emerges, apparently, according to a number of media reports, that the Cyriel Dessers deal, which has dragged on for what seems like an eternity, may not be as dead in the water as some people think it is. Now, when Rangers announced the other day, or I suppose when the media announced the other day that Rangers had put in a bid for Danilo, more of that later, it seemed like a lot of people were saying that this meant that the Dessers deal was as good as dead. It seemed obviously that there'd been a massive, the whole Dessers thing is kind of, I don't know, followed a bit of a saga-like pattern, hasn't it? He's kind of been on, and then there was rumours coming out of Italy that he didn't want to come to Scotland, then that was put right by the Daily Record. Now it kind of is apparently that Cremonese and Rangers cannot agree a fee for the player. The initial fee that Rangers offered apparently is way too low. Cremonese looking for a substantial amount of money, £5.5 to £6.5 million for the player. Rangers loathe to pay that much for a player who will turn 29 next season and obviously will have no resale value. You know, you sign a 29-year-old realistically, you know, in a year to 2 years time when he hits his 30s, he's not going to recoup you that £6.5 million, and that's something that Rangers have got to look at. You know, Rangers need to stay financially viable, financially stable, and a lot of that will come through this trading model. You know, bringing in players, developing those players, and selling those players on. Cyriel Dessers is not someone you can do that. He's 28 now. He will be 29, and his career is in a bit of a down curve anyway. You know, he only scored 6 in 29 appearances for Cremonese last season and failed, obviously, to help keep them in Serie A. They have been relegated to Serie B. Now there are reports again, and look, I know you've got to take all these reports from the media, particularly Italian media, with a little pinch of salt. There are rumours coming out of Italy that Rangers manager Michael Beale and the recruitment team have gone in for Dessers and this time offered Cremonese a loan to buy deal. Yes, that old loan to buy deal, the one that caused all that problems with Malik Tillman. And some people obviously have rumoured about Abdallah Sima. More of that again later in this video. Cremonese have ruled that out straight away, stating that if Cyriel Dessers is going to leave the club, which obviously they want this summer, he will leave on a permanent basis for a fee. They want money for him. So again, we are seemingly back to square one with that. You know, Rangers not willing to pay what Cremonese want. Cremonese wanting to recoup some of the money they paid for him. The fee they want is utterly ridiculous for a 28, 29-year-old, someone who didn't score a shed load of goals last season. You know, if he'd scored 15 to 20 goals last season, then yeah, fine, ask for $5.5, $6.5 million for him. You know, as well, if he was a couple of years younger, again, ask for that money. But he's 29 next year. I know that's not old in life terms, but in football terms, that is, you know, for a striker. And again, that brings no resale value. Personally, my personal opinion on this is I want to see them move on from Cyriel Dessers. I've watched the guy play for Cremonese a few times this season against some of the bigger teams, Inter, Juve, AC, and he's poor. He's not up to, for me, he's just not the player we need. He will not fit into the system. He's not a regular goal scorer. He doesn't look like he's going to get a lot of goals. I'd rather see Danilo. I'd rather see Maggia. I'd rather see someone like that. Maggia, Danilo, both younger, both better players than Dessers. Still got development, still got room to improve, but still have actually got better goals per 90-minute goal records than Cyriel Dessers over their careers. So you look at it that way. Do we want him? Look, I know some Rangers fans do want him. There's some Rangers fans out there that I've had discussions with on Twitter. Some of them I would question if they actually are Rangers fans, given what they've actually said and some personal insults that we've had. But Dessers is, to me, he's not the player we need at this club. He really isn't, and I really don't want to see him sign. Yes, if it was a choice between Cyriel Dessers and Lyndon Dykes, I'd take Dessers. Of course I would. But I just think that there's better players out there. There's better players we could sign. Danilo, Madja. Madja's available on a free, for goodness sake. Why pay millions of pounds for Cyriel Dessers, an average 29-year-old, when you can pay for when you can get a young up-and-coming talent who's got a better goal-scoring record in terms of minutes per goal, chance conversion rates, etc., than Cyriel Dessers. I don't understand it myself. Look, if you can explain it to me, please do so in the comments. But for me, big no to Dessers. Don't want him at the club. Really don't want to see him running out in a Rangers shirt next year. It would be a waste of that much money, an absolute waste of the money. You're not going to get it back. You're not going to recoup it. You pay 6-7 million for Danilo. There's a chance you could well recoup that money in a couple of years' time. Talking of Danilo, Feyenoord have named their price for the striker. They are seemingly wanting 5 million plus for the player. He's someone who has scored goals. He is someone who, as I've said in previous videos, is a quality striker, and I think would be a good acquisition for Rangers. I'm not going to talk too much about Danilo as I did on yesterday's video, but there's no reports yet as to whether Rangers have gone back in or whether they've tabled a second follow-up offer. But this is, before anyone talks about this in terms of just get on with it, just give them the money, this is the way it works. We've seen with Declan Rice, who today apparently has agreed to join Arsenal. After Manchester City came in with repeated bids, Arsenal came in with repeated bids. This is the way the transfer business works. You go in with an offer, perhaps not the full asking price for that player. You then, come back in with another offer, then follow up with another offer. You don't go straight in at whatever the club are asking. That's not the way it works. You don't want to get yourself fleeced. So, there is a build-up, isn't there, of offers there, and a build-up of prices offered. So, it may be that Rangers only offer 3.5-4 million for Danilo. They may go back in at 5.5 now. Feyenoord may want 7. It may come to some sort of agreement between the 5.5 and the 7 at 6.5 maybe. I don't know. It very much depends on where the clubs are at and the valuations on the player. But it does seem that that there is a understanding there that what the price is now, and it's whether Rangers obviously are willing to go to that price for Danilo. At the end of the day as well, you've got to look at the fact that it may not obviously be a straight up payment of 6-7 million if that's what they want for him. It may be that is an incremental deal in terms of the fact that they get a certain amount of money now, a certain amount of money next season. That isn't also a way that clubs work. That is, I think, a lot why at times players move for undisclosed fees. The players move on for undisclosed fees, are signed for undisclosed fees. They're not revealed to the media. It's because I think there's that incremental basis there of the fact that perhaps 3 million is the initial payment with another 3 million or 4 million to follow in 6 months' time. That's down to obviously to James Bisgrove. It's down to the recruitment team to get this right, and I think that's something that Michael Beale and the recruitment team need to be trusted to do, and I think they will get this spot on at the end of the day. More news about Jose Cifuentes. It's been reported in a number of media sources this evening that deal is getting very much closer to being done. July the 1st is the key date apparently for that deal. Then once pre-contract then can be signed. It's thought that then within a week of that pre-contract being signed, there may be an agreement on a fee of about 1.5 million to bring Cifuentes to the club. So it could be by the end of next week that he is unveiled as a Rangers player. So that's another one to watch out for. That is what has been reported by a number of media outlets this evening as regards Jose Cifuentes. Certainly a player I want to see come to Rangers. I think a player that will really add to our midfield and turn our midfield into that even more phenomenal unit than it already is, with the likes of Raskin, Cantwell and Jack, for example. Apologies if you heard a bang in the background. My dog decided to fall off the bed at that point. Dopey animal. Anyway, let's move on and talk about a player who has exited Rangers today. Polish right back Matthias Zakowski has left Rangers to join Slasroclo. I can't say that name. It's a difficult name to say. It's something like Slasroclo. Anyway, Zakowski only played one first team game for Rangers in his time in the cup competition in the Scottish FA Cup. He's been out on loan to teams like Lech Poznan. Never really, had an opportunity to impress in the first team, with obviously James Tavernier tying down that right back slot. Now as well, with the acquisition of Dujon Sterling, the emergence obviously of Adam Devine, it's felt that Matthias Zakowski had absolutely zero chance of ever playing any first team football at Ibrox. So he has now been allowed to leave. A fee has been agreed, but once again, that is an undisclosed fee. However, it is probably the first bit of money that has come in for a player to be sold this summer, and that is for Matthias Zakowski. So he is no longer a Rangers player. Now, before we talk about Abdallah Seaman, his loan deal, which there has been a bit of a development on today, a bit of a twist on, so hang on for that, I will be bringing that shortly. Rangers are rumoured to be looking to move on a number of players this transfer window and move on those players for a fee. We've talked about some of those players before. We've talked about who needs to be moved on, who needs to be sold, and how the club can bring in extra money for those for player acquisition. Now, there's been 5 players mentioned with an exit from the club. Obviously, the top name amongst that 5 is Glenn Kamara. Now, there was a number of teams that are apparently interested in Glenn Kamara and therefore felt that Rangers can get somewhere near the asking price of £5 million for him. Southampton have been rumoured to be interested, for example. Ex-Premier League team who've just been relegated to the English Championship. They are reportedly interested in bringing Kamara to England. Also, apparently as well on the list is Scott Wright. Now, Scott Wright was rumoured to be leaving to go to Preston North End. However, it seems like that deal collapsed over the fact that the Preston weren't prepared to pay the £1 million fee that it is alleged that Rangers wanted for the player. So, that's another one that possibly needs to be looked at again. Looked at how obviously he can be moved on. There is other Championship clubs allegedly interested in him. The next name on the list is John McLaughlin, the goalkeeper. Now, McLaughlin is someone who's going to find himself very much surplus to requirements this season, with Kieran Wright signing a new deal and likely to be the third choice keeper. Robbie McCrory, who is under contract despite any interest that may be in him from other clubs. Jack Butland, I think, will be the 3 keepers this coming season. So John McLaughlin, I think, is very much surplus to requirements. So he is another player that Rangers are apparently looking to move on with the next couple of weeks and get him out of the door. The other 2 players are players that perhaps might be a little bit more controversial in terms of their exits, and that's Ben Davies and Antonio Cholak. Cholak is reportedly a target of a few Bundesliga teams, and Ben Davies is reportedly a target of a few Championship clubs like, for example, Stoke City. I think a lot depends with Davies on whether Rangers manage to sign a new centre-back. Obviously, with players like Trusty, Panzo, Charlie Cresswell all being linked with a move to the club. I think if one of those deals comes off, we could well see Davies leave in this transfer window, and Rangers would obviously be hoping to recoup some of the money they repaid for Davies when they signed him. Cholak, another one who again I think could command a bit of a decent fee, and I think you look at what he's done in terms of goal scoring record for Rangers. 18 goals this past season, despite the fact that he missed a large number of games. The guy knows where the goal is. It's perhaps just that he doesn't suit Rangers' style of play and the split wide strikers that Beale seems to want to play. So Cholak could obviously another one be well on his way out the door. Obviously, if those 5 left as well, that would put it at 10 that have exited this summer, with the 5 obviously out of contract guys that have already moved on. Now, a few bits of news about James Bisgrove. Now, we all know that since James has kind of taken over that role as Chief Executive Officer, he has been very innovative in his ways of working, in his vision for the club, in terms of his modern vision for the club, moving the club forward. He apparently wants to get on to the SPFL board. However, with him needing 8 out of 12 votes to get on to that board, apparently it has been strongly rumoured that the other clubs will vote that down and vote against Bisgrove being on the board. Why? Well, it's all over Rangers' disagreement with the Cinch and the Glens vodka sponsorship deals. Apparently, the other teams are not happy with Rangers' attitude towards that. No doubt whipped by a bit of Celtic behind them, whipping everything up as well. Anti-Rangers feeling. We know there's an anti-Rangers feeling within the SPFL. We know teams don't like us. We know that's not really based on anything other than just, I don't know, ridiculousness. That I think is a lot of the move behind to not allow Bisgrove to be on the SPFL board. It was felt that he would actually get there and replace an ex-Celtic director whose name escapes me at this moment in time. But at the end of the day, I just think, again, it's very, very short-sighted in terms of the SPFL, in terms of, moving the league forward. James Bisgrove is an innovator. He's someone who has already shown at Rangers what he can bring. He's brought in so many different revenue streams to the club to increase the profitability of the club, the names on the backs of shirts, the names on shorts, the bar, the involvement of Levy, the involvement of Gordon Ramsay, just to name a few things that he's done that's brought in extra money to the club. And I think Scottish football needs someone like that involved at a high level, trying to, increase the TV deal, push the way that Scottish football works, perhaps overhaul things. The Scottish League needs a major overhaul. The way it's structured at the moment, for me, just does not work. I honestly think we should expand the Premier League, 18 teams maybe. Also, the TV deal, which is just absolute rubbish. It does not bring anywhere near enough money into the game. There is someone like James Bisgrove, I think, could develop those revenue streams and help to develop those revenue streams. Been at a high level on the SPFL board, but the problem is, obviously, that clubs are voting against that not because of any sound reason, just because of a hatred of Rangers, which to me seems utterly ridiculous. Okay, final story this morning, this afternoon, this evening, depending on when you pick up the video. Apparently it has been rumoured that James Bisgrove is looking into opportunities to sell the naming rights to the stadium. I don't know how you'd feel about that, Rangers fans. I think if it was going to happen, you'd have to keep Ibrox in the name somewhere. I think that is an absolute must for me. Teams around Europe have already sold off their stadium names. It is very much a modern thing to do. It's a way of raising revenue. Bayern, for example, by selling the naming rights to the Allianz Arena to Allianz, makes £6 million a year from that deal. Now, there is rumours around that Bisgrove has started to negotiate, looking at ways of bringing in money. I think one offer that was tabled was 10 million for 10 years. That'd be £1 million a year in extra revenue for the club. That obviously could change depending on what James Bisgrove can negotiate. I'd love to know your thoughts. What are your thoughts on renaming the stadium? I think obviously whoever we signed a deal with, it would have to be an appropriate name, something that that would honour the name of Ibrox and honour the name of Glasgow Rangers. You'd have to be careful with that. The Etihad Ibrox Stadium, I think, would work. Something along those lines. Delta Airlines Ibrox Stadium. I do think Ibrox does need to be in the name. I don't think it's, for me, I wouldn't want to see it completely sold so it became known as something else, like the, just let's take a random example, the Lloyd's TSB, I don't think they're even a company anymore, the Royal Bank of Scotland Stadium or something like that. I do want to see that name Ibrox still in the stadium name, but I'd love to know what you think on the renaming, the selling of the naming rights to Ibrox. I get that tradition is there, but even Barcelona eventually sold the sponsorship rights on their shirts for years. They always said that no one could pay them enough to put a sponsor on their shirts. Then they did it because revenue is key in football, in modern football, bringing in money. And I think if we're going to bring in money that attract enough money to really compete, we've got to look at every possible revenue stream to bring in money. And if that means selling off the naming rights to Ibrox, then we have to do it, in my opinion. I'd love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments below. Well, if you enjoyed the content, please hit that sub, ring that notification bell, and come and join the channel for 99p. It's just down below or back on the channel homepage. And hit that sub, guys. Ring the bell. It does help out. And always remember, for me, one thing I want you always to remember for me: we are the people.